Welcome to Lip Service for Contractors. Here you'll learn what moves the needle in your business. With your hosts, Brigham, the deep thinker, Josh, the $100 million contractor, Zach, the confused millennial, Laura, the foreigner. Lip Service. It's not about dictatorship. It's about leadership. It's not about duplication. It's about innovation. It's not about stuff. It's about your people. Strap in and get ready for some lip service.
We are back with another episode of Lip Service for Contractors. You guys, we've got a phenomenal episode for you today. We've got Austin in the house. What's up, Austin? So he's here. We're going to talk about employees transitioning, making the big jump after they've proven themselves, right? They've done above and beyond, and now they become supervisors. And how do we transition the mindset from employee to supervisor? All that and much, much more in 60 seconds.
Power Selling Pros is the customer service coaching company for contractors. Their one-on-one coaching for CSRs helps contractors book at least 85% of their calls and wow more customers. And their group training for technicians helps you create a better buying experience in the home and close more sales. Visit powersellingpros.com to learn more about how you can make more money with their coaching programs.
Chances are you love what you're hearing on Lip Service for Contractors. And if you want to go deeper, have an actionable playbook, or just want to learn from some of the most successful and profitable contractors in the industry, check out Clover Marketing from Josh and Laura. They give away free, amazing information, tools, SOPs, scripts, and processes that help their family business grow to over 140 million. And those same tools have helped other contractors in the industry blow up their business and grow an average of 20% every single year. Check out growwithclover.com/free gifts. They update the free gifts section all the time, so make sure you keep coming back. Welcome back to Lip Service for Contractors. You've got an employee. He or she is doing a phenomenal job. And you decide, you know what? You've done so great. You've proven yourself. We trust you here in this organization, and we'd like to give you an opportunity to move up and become a supervisor and begin to work with other people. So the question now is okay, is there a mindset shift that needs to happen there? And if so, why? And what kind of mind shift should it be?
Yeah. And let me hop in. Two things. Number one, I want to hop in, but I think it's also important. Not everybody knows who Austin is. Austin is an executive here at Clover. He comes from a restaurant background. He ran and operated the largest Chick-fil-A in the world. Give him the details on Chick-fil-A because it's ridiculous.
Yeah, so I was the COO of the world's largest Chick-fil-A. It's 5-story tall in Manhattan. I always say that's too much Chick-fil-A. If there is such a thing for those of you who haven't had it or have had it, you can't have too much. 5 stories is too much. But I was the Northeast brand regional consultant for a long time as well. So I oversaw operators all from the tip of Maine all the way down and was able to kind of service them in a lot of different capacities, helping them with their marketing, operations, vision, et cetera. And then also working in a local restaurant with a lot of leaders. And so this is kind of right up the alley of conversation because this happens every day in our restaurants as well.
Yeah, fast food you promote so fast. And I just for context, because it blows my mind, the shop in Manhattan, one location, yep. How many sandwiches a day?
I'll give you a max hour was over 9,000.
That's fucking crazy.
A lot of chicken.
That's a lot of chicken.
That brings like just the amount of chicken, the chicken farm. Oh my God, we're in the wrong business, right?
Do you guys
slaughtering a lot of
when they had that? Yeah, remember they had that huge competition? Maybe it was a year or two ago when Popeyes was like competing against Chick-fil-A in some fashion. And then the competition was so fierce that Popeyes ran out of chicken or what have you, and they had to apologize for a week. You guys remember that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I remember it well. I really love those Popeyes chicken sandwiches too. I was in those lines when they ran out. They were good.
You're kidding. That's funny. Okay, so background on the Manhattan thing. Did you come from another restaurant to manage that store? Or
yeah,
did
so
you actually work your way up? Tell us the background on that.
Yeah, so I started as a team member, bread and chicken in the back for $9.50 an hour. I had transferred from a successful career in academy. I was operations and logistics manager at a retail shop. It's kind of like a Dick's Sporting Goods, if you will. It was $54 million shop. And so I was doing that. And I got this offer to come work in the back of the chicken joint for $9.50 an hour. And I thought that was a good decision.
So how long did it take you to get from that position to actually running the 5-level Chick-fil-A store in Manhattan?
Yeah. So it took me 2 years to become executive financial director at the restaurant in Hammond. And then transitioning over to Manhattan, becoming the COO, took about another year and a half. And then I was opening that store. And so total time was like 3.5 years. And then I was in Manhattan almost 3 years.
Wow. So you obviously took a pay cut to work for Chick-fil-A.
Yep, I did.
And I know this isn't our topic, but just for the sake of my own curiosity, and I'm going to pretend that every other owner on the planet has the same question in their minds. What was it about Chick-fil-A that pulled you over?
Yeah, for me, when I spoke to the owner, so I had a series, and I let me just say it like this: I was running out of the door not to be hired by Chick-fil-A. I did not want to work at fast food. That was a downgrade for me. That was something that was like I had moving backwards in my career. And I saw an old buddy there in a bow tie running around saying my pleasure to folks. And I was like, I'm so glad I'm not him. And walked out that day with my chicken biscuit in hand. And I'll never forget, he walked up to my car for me and he was like, hey man, have you ever thought about a job here? And I said, yeah, and I don't want to do it. And just left. But over that course of a week, they were giving away free chicken biscuits. I was a month away from getting married, had limited money, just free flowing, and free is my favorite word. And so I went back every day for a free chicken sandwich. And every day I went back, they set me up with an interview, thinking that I was interested. And I was really only there for the sandwich that was free or the biscuit that was free. But they set me up with interviews anyway, and they just wanted to get to know me. I got to know them. And from that week of getting to know them, they showed me 4 things: genuine care and concern, a pathway, a trajectory to growth, a commitment to not only personal, but professional development. And I think the 4th thing was just an atmosphere that catered to that. And what I mean by that is that last one for me, over that course of the week, I was able to see what else was going on in the company because I'm meeting with not just the owner, but I'm meeting with every one of their leaders throughout the week, seeing it, watching it, experiencing it. And so I didn't just hear the promises that were given. I saw the promises being fulfilled in others. And so that atmosphere kind of pulled me in and drew me in. And I didn't even ask how much they were going to pay me. I just said, give me a job, which was pretty.
Probably should have asked. Yeah.
Yeah. I probably should have asked, but I just knew that was a place that, and it was a season as well. My wife was working. We didn't have kids. I was super young. And so I was able to take a kind of a horizontal step or even a backward step and say, hey, I want to kind of place my chips in this basket or on this hand and see where it goes. And that wasn't as scary at that moment in my life. And so luckily it worked out. So
I was impressed the first time I met you, and I'm equally impressed now. I think Josh got a still of a find. Very cool. If you have any friends that like training, send them my way.
No,
absolutely.
absolutely not. No, if you got friends with training, you got to work for us.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, I mean, a quick 30-second break to our next sponsor, Indeed. I'm just kidding.
I thought you were going to do Popeye's chicken. And I was like,
that would be equally funny. So here's the thing, and we've all been through this, where you've got an employee that is just stellar, doing an amazing job. First of all, how do you tell that this person has the ability to be a supervisor, be a leader inside of his or her organization?
or a manager or whatever, right?
Yeah. You know, the whole thing with the Peter principle, you promote them to the point of finish it for me, guys. I'm
I
not
thought
great
they were
with
going to say
metaphors.
Peter in, Peter out. Yeah, totally different.
Yeah. But you get my point, right?
Oh,
You get them to the point where they're incapable of doing the job, and then you fire them.
yeah. You don't want to
So-
set someone up for failure. Let's start with, I think identifying is the biggest thing. I think a lot of people make the mistake of, hey, this is my best salesman. He should be my sales manager. Or this is my best technician. He should be my, my service manager. And that's
Mhm.
often actually the opposite of the truth. Like your best salesperson, you want out selling. It's hard to bring him into the office. And by the way, a salesperson has a certain type of personality if they're really successful, and leadership is usually not their strong side. So you have to identify people that your team naturally follows. And if you're paying attention, I think it's actually fairly easy to tell, but you have to pay attention, right?
E for Josh. Continue.
Yeah. So you got to pick the people that people are naturally following and focus more on personality and leadership skills as opposed to the technical skills, right? Like my best technician, right, skill wise, is almost never a good manager, right? My best salesperson, that's a different technique, right? Different skill set, is almost never a good manager, right? It's the guys that tend not to be middle of the road, but kind of upper middle, and they just have everyone's respect. Everybody listens to them. Everybody pays attention to them, and they're willing to open their mouths and talk and take those risks, and they care more, right? So there's a bunch of factors into it, but the first thing you have to pay attention to is forget the mindset of switching into management, right? There's a piece of that has to happen. But if they don't have a team mindset to begin with, and they don't have a leadership mindset just naturally to begin with, you're going to bang your head against the wall an awful lot to get them to be successful in that position. And I mean, Austin could probably speak to this more than me because, you think it's one thing with technicians and installers and CSRs. I can't imagine doing it with teenagers, selling chicken sandwiches.
Yeah. And I would say teenagers and chicken sandwiches is really actually an easy thing. In Hammond, small town outside of New Orleans, we would find great people out of college. We'd find young people going through college. And it was kind of like, hey, we could teach you how to be a leader pretty easily in a restaurant or supervisor or manager within the restaurant. It got really challenging in New York City. And I learned a lot about the leadership process and how to identify that because it wasn't teenagers. Number one, it was everybody above the age of 18. Most people were above 25, 26, some in 30s, had multiple different jobs and careers, come to us and they're like, I should be a leader because I was a leader in all these other organizations too. Or I should be a manager because I managed McDonald's down the road for 30 years. And so simple enough, I just use the FAT principle. If they're fat enough, they can be a supervisor or manager in my restaurant. What I mean by fat is faithful, available, and teachable.
But it has nothing to do with like extra chicken sandwiches, right?
No, not at all. It wasn't how much they could eat. It was all about being faithful, available, and teachable. Because if I can teach you what you need to know, if you're available to not only me, but the team around you, and you're faithful and you're consistent, you're dependable, you're reliable, you're there, what Josh just said happens, right? People respect you around the organization, and then I trust you, right? It's all about building this trust factor. And I would say, don't look around at who's performing the best, look around at who you trust the most. Not necessarily trust with performance, but trust with everything. And those things may be synonymous in your business, but faithful, available, teachable is kind of the three words I use when it comes to like start identifying those people.
Faithful, available, teachable. Can I tell you guys a quick story?
Yeah.
Please, yeah.
All right. So this is one of those where when you hear it, you either go, I've been there before, or gosh, Brigham's just dumb. And that either one's fine. Yeah. Either one's fine. So
why can't it be both?
I know. Yeah, maybe a little bit of no way. All right. So when I first started Power Sling Pros, and this is probably 15 years ago, what have you, there was Barry Gates, who's still with me, Nathan Dickinson, my brother, who's still with me, and another individual. And his name's not important.
Can we come up with a code name?
Yeah, Jimmy.
Okay.
Yeah. Say Jimmy. So Jimmy.
It's always the Jimmy.
Phenomenal leadership talent. Not just great at sales, but phenomenal leadership talent. And as the owner of the company, instead of empowering him, helping him feel fulfilled, make sure he continues to grow, so on and so forth, I was instead intimidated by him. And so, of course, we didn't get along, right? And for about 6 months, we didn't get along. And he finally left. And the way he left wasn't great, right? It hurt all of us. And looking back on that entire experience and the way that I acted in the process because of my intimidation, the threat, right? The threat of losing my leadership and ownership, so on and so forth, just silliness, ridiculousness. I lost a phenomenal talent and there's no way to get that talent back. And so I almost wonder that when people or when leaders see certain talent where they see exactly what you're saying, Josh, they see somebody that's like, wow, dynamic, and people listen to him. or her or what have you. And then as opposed to working with that individual and coming to terms with that individual and giving that individual opportunities to lead your organization. I mean, if you play it right, it could give you the thing that you really wanted when you first started your business. What you really wanted was not just financial freedom, but freedom over your time. And if I could just have the foresight back then that I have now, my gosh, I'd be light years ahead.
I mean, here's what I tell you, Brigham. I think I've never been intimidated by a team member. I don't look at team members that way.
Until now.
Till now. Yeah, now.
Yeah.
No, because I have a team mentality and it doesn't bother me if someone can carry more than me. That's awesome. They're carrying for me. What's the harm in that? In fact, I'll give them some of their own to carry. Anyway, not the point. What I would tell you is hindsight's 2020, things are different. And could you have maybe handled that person better, Jimmy, better? Probably. But the truth is you may not have been in a position to really support him either. Right? Like this is a cultural difference between me and you. Like you take great pride in the fact that no one leaves. Like that Barry's still with you, that your brother's still with you. Like as weird as it sounds, I think that's terrible. Barry should be going doing his own shit, which he kind of is now. Right? Your brother should be doing it. Like the goal is for me to get you to a point. And I've had conversations with Austin and everybody in the team, right? Like the goal is at one day you come to me with a business idea and I get to fund you and I have a piece of your business and you get to do your own thing and I get to support and help you in that. But like if someone's with me for 15 years, that means I haven't forced them to grow enough. They've become comfortable. I don't see that as a positive thing. Like that, I know a lot of people don't like that, but like, a technician wants to start their own business. If they're really capable of it, this is a good thing. Like it's better for them, better for you. If they're not capable, then it's obviously not good. But that should be a badge of honor.
Yeah. If they're not a leadership type, I would say that.
Yeah, but I try not to hire non-leadership types. You know what I mean? I want everybody to grow into something. I don't hire somebody for what they can do right now. I hire them for what they can do right now and their potential.
I think to your point, Brigham, earlier when you talked about your story, and to Josh's point here too, one thing I would say just as an encouragement to you, but also to everyone listening, if you've been in that position, I've been in that position before. Early on my leadership career, it was more about survival and protection than it was inviting incorporation, right? Corporation meaning like everyone's working together for the sake of the team. Early on, it was like, I got to get up to the top as fast as I possibly can. It's a little bit different from where you were, but the same result happened. And people would come up the ranks and I would try to push them back down because I was like, you can't pass me. And it was only until I was comfortable with not being the smartest person in the room was when kind of doors started opening for me, actually completely different than even what I thought, right? Doors at corporate started opening, doors here started opening, doors here. And it was like, man, this is actually awesome. Because now I've got leaders to run the restaurant. I can go do more things, but that's really easily said and really hard to do. So Josh, I'd ask you, like, when it comes to that mindset, how do you keep yourself disciplined in that? Because there has to be, I know where you are, and I know your background, and I know kind of what you come from, but there has to be a moment where you have to like recheck yourself in your mind and say, okay, like, no, this is the right thing to do, even though this may be scary or this may be intimidating, or how did you discipline your mind to never think about that?
I haven't yet. That's me. No, I'm pretty good at it. I think, Austin, you're privy to more than most, but I've had a lot of people work for me over the years. To me, it's just an honesty thing, right? Like, what's the goal of the business? The goal of the business is not to make me rich. The goal of the business, as weird as this sounds, like it's really, for me, it's all about growth. And that growth 100% implies the team members. I purposely, I know my lane and I know what I'm good at and I know my skill set. And I don't hire people that aren't growth oriented because I'll rub them the wrong way. I will. So if you're super growth oriented and we're working towards a common goal, like how can you ever fear someone? If someone does better than me and wants to be the CEO of Clover and they're better than me, like that just means we all get to grow more and we get to do more things. Like how can that be a bad thing? And you know what? Fuck it. They want to do a competitor of mine. Like good luck. That's okay too, right? Like eventually everybody leaves at some point, right? We talk about that all the time. sometimes, it doesn't leave the way you would want to leave, but that's okay too. Like, I can't control everybody. And the moment you realize that you can only control what you do, it really frees you mentally a lot.
Yeah.
I had a question for Austin based on his last experience that he shared. You said that when you overcame that intimidation, right, in your work environment, that it gave you the ability to do other things. So it sounds like when you grew, when you chose to improve, get better, right, as a leader, it then gave the organization itself the opportunity to grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I call it like, it's common within the business circles or leadership circles, right? Talk about moving the lid, right? I became the lid to the organization. It wasn't going to grow past where I was at because, the buck stopped with me. But once I got to a point where I was going to say, hey, like, I want all of you to grow up. Well, then I'm just moving my way. I'm moving myself as the lid out of the way and allowing people to say, create your own ceiling, create your own possibility, create your own limits. And I'm going to go do this thing over here because that's where I find my most value. My best version of myself is over here. Find that within yourselves. And now I'm able to facilitate work instead of having to do work, right? Which talks about kind of where you were going earlier with, I think, about this idea of freedom, right? I think we get into a place of fear where we want to control it. We want to white knuckle it. We want to grip it so tight. And that's where the intimidation comes. It's out of a fear, not of that person necessarily, but a fear of losing it. And so we're afraid to kind of let those hands go. I don't know, funny little anecdote I always talk about, and I've shared this with a lot of my team members and leaders over the years, is like, don't grip it too tightly. We were at a beach one time with my son, and he was like 5 years old, and he was begging me, I don't like sand. I don't like water. I'm super pale. I get burnt a lot. The beach is not my friend. Don't ask me to go to the beach. I don't want to go. Okay. So put me on a mountain. But so my son is begging me, Dad, please come and catch a hermit crab for me. I really want a hermit crab. I really want a hermit crab. Dude, if I heard that one more time, I was going to lose my mind. So I went down against all logic, found a hermit crab and gave it to him. And about 5 minutes later, he's at the table and he's banging it against the table. And I was like, you little son of a... I just got you this hermit crab. I did everything I didn't want to do, and you just murdered it. And I was like, what are you doing, kid? I was furious. But he said, Daddy, I love this hermit crab. I said, you're killing it. He was like, I love it so much. I wanted to see it. I wanted it to come out of its shell. It felt cramped in there, and I wanted to get him out. And I was like, man, if that's not a business principle. No, I just started like kind of laughing at him. But then thinking back on it now, that's exactly what we do with our business, right? Like, we're holding on to it. We love it so tight. We want it to be this thing. And we think this is what we need to do in order to make it successful and to make it work and to make it live longer, right? In this case, a hermit crab, right? But actually what we're doing is we're strangling the life out of it. We're killing it by not enabling the people below us to grow and to be all that they can be. It'll actually suffocate the life out of your business. And you'll lose not only your top tier talent, but you'll lose all future talent because those top tier talent has top tier friends. And they're going to say, there's no future there. And so really you're really doing a lot more damage than good all the way around.
Love it. I do have another experience. Josh, did you want to chime in real quick?
Go for it.
All right. So it's obviously been 15 years since that experience.
You started the business when you were 7 or 8, right?
So I'm 46 as of the 24th of this month. So I was around 30-ish. Not great with math, but I believe I was around 30. So long time ago. It certainly feels like a long time ago. I got an email proposal from one of my employees, phenomenal marketer, great in sales. And the proposal was to become the CEO of Power Sling Pros. And by the time this podcast comes out, you'll know who it is. So I'll just tell you, it's Zach Garside. Phenomenal talent.
Did I tell you he set a meeting with me and ran like his CEO plan by me for approval?
Is that right?
He did.
I love it.
I'm like, you don't need my approval. And he goes, I would just feel better if I had it though.
So Josh, did you just admit to running a coup?
No. It was after Brigham told him.
No,
It's already
you're
worked.
running a
It
coup.
was already
Yeah.
worked.
So his first week on the job, super awesome. I'm very excited about it. He's doing a great job. And what it is it's kind of shown the team that there is no ceiling for any of them, that they all have the opportunity to move up. And it's just created this energy inside the organization. I'm really excited about it. And again, you guys, the goal is not just financial freedom, it's freedom over your time. And so if you can get people better than you to take on specific roles, that should be an exciting thing, not an intimidating thing. And of course, I'm speaking to my younger self because I can't speak to my younger self. I can only speak to you. So let me tell you what happened. About a weekend, he gives me a call and he's kind of frustrated. I'm like, what's going on, Zach? And he's like, well, my plate's full, right? And I'm like, yeah, dude, your plate's full, man. You're working hard. And he says, look, I'm kind of juggling 2 jobs here. I'm trying to get people in on the marketing and sales side, but at the same time, I'm trying to be CEO. And he says, and when phone calls come in, holy cow, it is really hard to put everything aside and take care of that person. And of course, it was an employee that had a question about something. And I said, wow. And of course, the first thing I said is, what are you going to do about that? Right. And I'm sure Josh has talked about this several times. And of course, he shared some ideas and some thoughts and so on and so forth. And we kind of went back and forth. I said, what I had to learn to do when it comes to stuff like that, he was like, what's that? I said, I had to learn to do nothing. He's like, what are you talking about? Learning to do nothing. And I said, no, it's true, man. I realized that every time I took on a specific role and showed everybody else my expertise, my ability, my mastery in that thing that I was doing, that specific task, whether it's sales, whether it's operations, whether it's marketing, all I did was show them that I'm the hero. And inadvertently, I showed them that they are not. And so I realized over time that every time I did that, came in, swooped in, became the hero, they became attached to that heroism and they needed me, as opposed to realizing for themselves, they could actually do it themselves, right? That they can do it, that they could be the hero, that they could swoop in. And I forced myself to do nothing except those things that were the most important. And what was the most important? Building my people, building them up, telling them how amazing they are, how heroic they are. And that's where I told them, look, Zach, you need to learn to be the painter and not the paint. And the thing about paint is once you put paint on a canvas, you might create, right? You might be part of an amazing tapestry. But the minute that paint dries, you're stuck there.
Yeah.
So when you transition to being the painter, look, you can create tapestry after tapestry, painting after painting, and beautiful, right?
And repaint.
Exactly. So as a leader, to a certain extent, I absolutely agree with Josh that your goal is to bring on leaders and let them lead.
I'm going to ask you a question, Brigham.
Yeah.
And this is not personal, but it's personal-ish. And I think it ties back to our original conversation, right?
Yeah.
So I think the first thing we said, when we talked about the original conversation, is you have to be able to identify a leader effectively. Who's actually a leader? But I think after that, it's really a lot of the problems people have with leaders, they either give them too much freedom or not enough freedom. There's a balance in there where like they need to be supported, but they don't need to be suffocated. Like you just promoted Zach, and I'm curious, and you have no idea this is coming, right? But like, I know you, like you hate sharing like financials. Like that's close to the vest for you. I don't work that way. Yeah, like certain reporting you don't like the team knowing about. How did that feel? And how did you handle, like, now Zach's the CEO, right? He's got to know that stuff. It's not debatable anymore, right? How did you handle that transition? Did it like feel like you were white knuckling at first and then just relief when you let it go, or?
Certainly a lot of relief. Getting more eyes on it feels good. It feels exciting. But yes, I held on to it for a long time, probably longer than I should have. So yeah, definitely felt a sense of freedom.
So I'm just curious, and this is back to like the same conversation. Like, why do you think you held on to it for so long?
Great question.
I don't think, like, especially your business, like one of your coaches needs to know the financials. They probably need to know revenue goals and things like that, right? But they don't need to know financials. But your executive team, you have a whole crew of executive teams.
Yeah,
I know, right?
I know the answer, Josh. I know the answer.
Tell me.
I was afraid of judgment.
Why?
I don't know. I held myself back for sure. But I think I was afraid of just, dude, why are we spending money there? Why are we spending money here? You know what? It's my business. I'll spend where I want to spend. Right. So I think it was that. I think it was a fear of judgment.
Yeah. I wouldn't stress, man. I don't think people are going to judge you. I also don't think you're going crazy over the top. You know what I mean? Like, I think that's a crazy thought process. I think you probably realize that now.
Oh yeah. I mean, look, hindsight's 2020. And I'm willing to bet that there isn't one business owner listening to this podcast that can relate at all.
Oh, for sure. For me, it's not a financials thing. Like I share that up front. I share, like, Austin knows how I get paid. But there's other things, like it takes a while for me to let go. It's like, oh, okay. But you got to do it. You got to do it. It's scalable.
Yeah. It's been, look, the energy at PSP right now has never been better. We've got a team that's never been more engaged. And look, there is no ceiling when there is no ceiling for the owner. And I realize that more and more every day.
Yeah, it's I think I've talked about this too, but I think it's brilliant. The old Roto-Rooter model for growth, their whole thing was it's not the man, it's not the land, it's the man, right? Meaning it's never market pressure, it's never your city, it's never your marketing, it's always the person in charge. A business will grow to the comfort level of the person in charge. So Roto-Rooter's whole expansion plan, and obviously they all do it anymore, but it was brilliant. Is if they were in Phoenix and they had Roto-Rooter and it grew to $4 million and then kind of got stagnant, they would break it to an east and west, right? And that $4 million guy now has a $2 million shop, and he'd almost instantaneously get to $4 million because that's where he's comfortable, right? He's got half the city to work with, right? And the other guy has his own cap, and you just keep dividing. I don't think that's the greatest growth strategy in the world, but it was very effective. There's no doubt about it. Roto-Rooters at one point, it's still a gigantic animal, right? But at one point, it was a dominant presence just because of that concept.
I think the biggest thing with this, thinking about all the contractors listening to this podcast around around the country, around where we are, I think the biggest thing to remember is if they're not having those hard conversations, not about finances, I'm talking about with themselves.
Yeah.
If they're not having the hard conversations, if they're not battling internally, if they're not pursuing growth, then of course they're not going to be comfortable around the table with high caliber talent. Of course they're not going to share their financials or of course they're not going to give up control, right? So I just think this is a great reminder too, that if you want high caliber people in your team and you identify high caliber talent, the truth is you attract what you deserve, right? You will keep around what you deserve to have around. If you're not personally growing, you're not going to be surrounded by people who are personally growing. That's just the way it is. And I think that's the personal challenge here. That is, if you find yourself in that boat as a contractor, you have the power to get out of it. Start reading, start challenging yourself, start asking the hard questions and start moving towards that freedom by doing more things that challenge you in that way. Growth and comfort don't coexist. And so I think it's something that we just have to be willing to do.
I'm harping on financials, but it could be over anything, right? But like, I think you're right, Brigham. I think a lot of people don't I know contractors and not something to be proud of, but they don't want to hire an accountant because they know their books are a mess.
Yep.
It's like, well, that's the reason you hire an accountant. That's the point, right? But yeah, I think there is sometimes just that fear, but we're totally off topic, but I still enjoyed this podcast. So who cares? But it's one of those things that's really easily said. And I think everyone understands that in principle. Whether they have the fortitude and the strength to just say, hey, I don't know everything and I don't need to know everything. And sometimes I just need to rely on other people and just live with that. The more you let go, the more you have control. And so it doesn't feel that way. It doesn't sound that way. It sounds goofy to say, but it's the actual truth.
It's something interesting when I think about that too. And this would be interesting to hear you and Brigham's thoughts on this too, Josh and Brigham. But it's interesting. I find people who are more open to having coaches and more open to having mentors and these type of mentorship relationships are much more likely to do that internally within their business than the people that are not.
I would agree with that.
And I guess the thing that's important there is we say it's not hard to do in practice. Well, that's one easy step, one really easy step. Find a coach, find a mentor, find a person that you can start doing that with from you up. And then that's your model to do it you down within your company, right? And just let that trickle down into changing your organization, because that also feels really challenging. It's like, do I just open up my financials to everybody tomorrow? No. Do I just release control? No. Do one thing. And that one thing you can do is find one person to do that with that you trust, whether in your organization or outside, and start making some moves and then see where it goes.
This is a random question, and it's kind of an asshole question, but I want to ask it, and it's a Brigham question specifically. I've always, throughout my career, tried to always have two mentors at any given time. One that I want to be like, and one that has skill I want to learn. Right? I have no problem finding skills still. I'm at a point now where it's really hard to find an overall mentor, because, like, you know, I could talk to a shop that does 50 million, and I end up mentoring them, not the other way around, right? Because it's just not people that play at the same level, and that's not like a knock on anybody, right? But like, have you hit that wall yet? Because I know you're big into having coaches and mentors. Are you like do you struggle with that more than you used to?
I'm part of an entrepreneurs organization forum. So I have a group of 8 local business owners. There's certain criteria. You've got to be, you know, over $1 million in revenue. And I've got 2 that are almost at 100 million at this point. And we all have the same ideals and so on and so forth. As far as those I want to be like, you know, I'd say anybody in my forum I'd absolutely want to be like. And from a skill standpoint, yeah. I mean, even from a skill standpoint. So I guess the short answer to your question is through entrepreneurial organization, EO forum, I've absolutely experienced both of those types of mentors.
Wow.
But before then, it was on an island. I hate being on an island.
Yeah. I mean, it's nice for vacation, but not to live.
You know what I'm saying? Metaphorically speaking, business owners are alone, and it's tough. You know, it's tough.
So anybody on this podcast that's a badass or knows a badass that is looking for mentees, I'm looking for a mentor.
Josh, I'm right here, man. Right here.
This is what I'm saying. I hired Austin to be my mentor. He ends up being my mentee. What the hell's up with that?
No. And so, but I think that's really important, Brigham, like to go back to the very beginning. You can't identify people if you're not actively working on it yourself. I think that's
true. That's very true.
That's a big one. Because I think you'll be in the business, you know, and you'll say, I don't have any leaders. Well, you probably do, just not ones that look or act like you. And that's maybe a good thing, right?
All depends.
I hate to say it like that, you know, but like sometimes I've experienced operators, they're like, man, I just can't find anybody that's good in the restaurant. Like, well, I wouldn't really want to be here if I was like you, and I wouldn't want to be like you. And, you know, I think what you said was interesting, Josh, like, hey, find someone you want to be like. The people under you are looking for that as well.
Oh, for sure.
And if you can't be that person, then they gone.
And like, I would always hesitate and like warn people here. This is not growth and business. Like, there's no finish line. You know, anybody that says, hey, we're at 2 million, you know, we get them to 10 million in 2 years. They're like, 10 million was my goal. I'm like, no, 10 million was your short-term goal. What are we doing now? Like, there's no finish line in this whatsoever. It doesn't exist. And it doesn't exist with personal growth or leadership or whatever, right? If you're not that perfect leader right now, number one, no one is. But if you don't feel like you're a good enough leader to pull this off, number one, I would tell you, just by having that thought process, you're a lot further along than you probably think. Because bad leaders think they're great leaders, but are terrible leaders, right? And number two, leadership is a moving target. People change and your organization changes and the market change. There's all kinds of things that, you know. So like, as long as you're focusing on growth in that area, you are going to be a good leader. If you're not right now, it won't take long, because it doesn't take a lot of effort to become a good leader. It just takes consistent effort.
Yeah.
That's good.
I wanted to quickly touch on the hard to find good people thing. And I realize I've never owned a heating and cooling company. And I will definitely defer to Josh on this if he feels differently. But I do own a 9 answering service. I do own a customer service training company. I do own a post-workout organization, opening up a second location in a matter of a year. So in every case, I haven't had any issues finding good people. And I wonder if that is somewhat the case, at least somewhat the case, if not all the case, in heating and cooling as well. I guess my feeling is, my belief is that those who are great leaders, as well as those who have great culture, right? Purposeful cultures, have zero problem getting hordes of individuals wanting to work with them. I mean, Chick-fil-A is another example. I mean, Austin took a step down to work in that culture and in that environment.
Yeah. I mean, what I would tell you is there's truth to what you said, and there's some not truths to it, right? A really good organization does not have trouble finding techs, does not have trouble finding CSRs, does not have trouble finding supervisors, but there are some roles that are just hard to fill, like Parker and Sons, 200 million, right? Getting a service manager that could handle, 100 service techs. There's not a lot of them out in the world right now, right? Not that you can't teach someone, not that you can't set them up, and that guy that used to run 35 can't handle that, because he can. But you're at a certain level, it becomes hard to recruit, both at high end and when you're small, right? If you're trying to hire your first salesperson, your first one is the hardest one, because you've not proven that you could even handle a salesperson, and salespeople don't want to work for that. You can work your way around it, right? But what I would tell you is, if you're a great leader and you're making the effort, you can always find people. Some positions are easier to find than others. If someone says, I can't find any good people, it's a problem with their process, with their systems, or with the leadership. You can always find great people. It's just some people you can't replace in a week.
Okay. So the reoccurring theme in this podcast is that leaders hold companies back.
Yeah. And they also drive them forward. All depends on what side of the coin you are.
Yeah. So the minute you promote somebody from employee to supervisor, your first responsibility is to quickly, help them learn what you've learned, which is, in order for organizations to grow, leaders need to grow. And so you got to have a leadership mindset as opposed to a task-oriented mindset.
What I would say too is, like, obviously you do need to hold them accountable. You need to have clear expectations. You need to have a clear job description, what a win, what a loss. There's a lot of details to this too, right?
Yeah.
But one thing you said that I want to point out, you said you got to learn what you learned. Understand that a good leader doesn't have to have your leadership style. That's not relevant. That might be a plus in certain situations. It might be a negative in certain situations, right? So don't try to find people like you, because no one's going to be better at being you than you. Find people that would be great at the position and are different than you.
Their best selves.
Yeah.
Love it.
We almost didn't talk about the topic at all, but I still really enjoyed this podcast.
No, contractor is going to listen to this 2 or 3 times, I'm sure.
Yeah. That's it? Just 3 times? Yeah.
For me, at least 3 times. I'm going to listen to it at least 3 times. Good stuff, you guys. Look, we're going to have Austin on again. Holy crap.
I would love that. Man, I'm still chewing on what you said a little while ago. People will not grow because they witness something great. They will grow because of their witness with you. I think that's really, like, spending time caring about them, doing the things that, helping them grow. That's when they're going to succeed, not because they witness you coming in as a hero. Man, I'm going to chew on that for a while. So
yeah, leaders are in the people building business. If they don't think they are, they're wrong.
Well, if they don't think they are, then, that business is not doing well.
Yeah. And you build people. Great. Yeah. You build people and that business will grow. Focus on them. Make them the hero.
I think Donald Miller talks about that.
Oh, just so you're aware, Brigham, Austin is like a Donald Miller super fan. We do executive meetings every Wednesday, and then we do longer formats every Monday. There was a good 3 months where, like, every Wednesday, he goes, I saw this thing Donald Miller put on. I'm like, if I hear Donald Miller one more time,
I'm telling you, if you don't know about Donald Miller, get on you some Building a Story brand. Our next sponsor here is Building a.
So Austin's got himself a mentor. Okay. So guys, like, share, don't hoard this information. Let's make sure that everybody in your friend group has this message. It's a good one. So what's the list, Josh? Like, share, subscribe,
follow, send this to your mother. I'm going to record this, for your children. If they're unborn, just save them for later. You know?
Yeah.
I think we forgot the most important one. Actually do something with the damn information we just gave you.
Oh, that would be good. Yeah. That would be great. Get that
Don't just-
mentor, start having that mindset. Yeah, that's a better one. Yep. Do
Yeah,
all of
man.
that.
Let's
while you're out
it's
there-
freedom over your time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
While we're out there, we might as well. Well.
Let's change the world.
All right, guys.
Yeah, baby.
Appreciate you.
Thank you for listening to Lip Service for Contractors. We hope you enjoyed this episode. Make sure to leave us a review in the App Store and don't forget to share with your friends. Ideas are cheap. Implementation is what separates the winners from the watchers. Go out and implement these ideas. See you on the next episode of Lip Service for Contractors.